All right, so this is my monthly check-in video for Patreon and just in general what I'm doing for the month of November. So first I'm going to recap what I did for the month of October. My commitments last month were set up a Slack for Biosphere 3, which I did, and if you'd like to be added to it, contact me directly and I'll add you to it. I need your email. Launch biosphere3.org, which I did. You can go to it right now. It's not great, but it's a placeholder. And add 10 components to the component library on Biosphere 3, and then upload a interactable version of our ecosystem design software. And I did all of those things. So you can check out Biosphere 3 if you want. I also did a couple of extra things. This has been a really interesting month. So I launched Biosphere 3, which I'm kind of like keeping as a placeholder for a Biosphere building festival that I'm planning to throw either next year or the year after that. It's kind of like a longer term goal because there's a couple things that need to happen before I can actually build a whole Biosphere, obviously. So what I focused on this, I also registered a couple new websites this month. I registered disruptivelyuseful.org and campbelieveit.org. Because I decided that it makes sense for there to be individual websites for each of the different phases of the project that I'm working on. So basically, disruptivelyuseful.org I intend to be a place that will eventually house the component library that is currently on biosphere3.org. And that will be the place where I'm launching this ecosystem design software, because each of the pieces, if connected together, would be disruptively useful. And then I'm launching another website called campbelieveit.org. You can tell I like puns. That will be where I'm going to be developing a lot of these individual systems geared towards small scale, off the grid, open source village infrastructure for things like energy, electricity, heat, hot water, water filtration, all that stuff. And this month, I'll be working on that particularly because I want to take a lot of that stuff to Standing Rock, where there is a huge need for regenerative infrastructure, particularly hot showers and just heat throughout the winter. And I'll get to that in a second. But then there's also that same infrastructure is required, or the prerequisite for building biospheres, and also extremely applicable for things like Hazelnut Grove and other off-grid tiny home villages that are being used to address houselessness in Portland, which is also a issue that's happening right now. And also just, because people are doing it anyway, and it's a good way to get ideas out there. Also for the festival scene, when people go out, they're camping, it makes sense to just reduce our use if people are going to Burning Man or Burning Man events, which obviously is not as important as Standing Rock or houseless villages, but it's all dealing with the same thing, which is how do we support ourselves without relying on the grid infrastructure systems that are increasingly extractive and oppressive. How do we create alternatives to that? Because the alternatives are all there, we just have to build them, and we have to create systems where they all interweave together so that there are no gaps in the ecosystem, that all of our wastes become the inputs for systems that can regenerate all of our wastes into energy and resources. And so that's what I've done this month. I also applied to the Shuttleworth Foundation, which is a really amazing organization that funds people who are working on innovative, world-changing ideas related to openness and open source and that kind of thing. And so I applied. I'll post a link to the video, my application video, but I applied for that, and I'll hear back probably within the next month. So if I get that, then I will be focusing for the next year on building the design software that I think is the necessary first step for building biospheres, because it allows us to build a library of all of these individual ecological components and then see how we can link them together into what I'm calling ecological circuits, which is really just another way of conceptualizing how ecosystems function together. So this month, November, I'm going to be building individual systems to take out to Standing Rock, which I will probably be going out there right at the beginning of December next month. And so my intention for this month, I think the only thing that I'm going to commit to, what I'm going to use the $80 that I'm getting from Patreon right now, is to revisit my gasifier idea, or the gasifier design that I've been working on. It's kind of half finished right now. So it can burn trash right now, but I want it to be able to produce charcoal and ideally produce a flammable syngas that could be cleaned up and used to run in a generator. I have a 1999 Honda Accord that it was the car that I learned to drive on, and it's sitting outside of my house, and it runs great and doesn't really do anything else great. It's, an old car. And I love the idea of trying to get that car running on charcoal that we can produce from trash and biomass, and then use that as an energy center. Because every car, in the next 5 to 10 years, self-driving cars are going to become more and more of a thing, and the need for individual cars is going to become less and less. And individual cars all have all of the subsystems that you need to run a very basic biosphere. You have a heat pump, you have a coolant system that heats liquid, you have an exhaust system that creates hot gas that you can use for drying things out or for heating space, and then you have an alternator that's producing DC electricity. And then, of course, there's the rotary shaft power that comes out of the wheels that can be used to run power tools. So if you were to take a car and then make it stationary, it's basically an everything generator. And they're cheap and readily available, and all the parts are easy to work on and available all over the world. So I'm really interested in exploring that, but I can't make any promises of how far I will get with that. So my commitments for November are I'm going to get I'm going to revamp the design for my gasifier so we can derive at least heat and hopefully fuel from trash at Standing Rock and anywhere, really. And then I'm also going to try, and these are things that I'm working on but not necessarily committing to. If you'd like to donate money, this will help me do this. But I'm going to try and build like a basic solar array so we can run some power tools and have I don't know if this is a stupid name. I think it's funny. I can't believe it being a place where we're showing off these really cool regenerative waste energy technologies. Like the theme for me is energy and how we derive energy from places where we only see wastes traditionally. So human waste, waste plastic, burnable trash, waste biomass, food scraps. Deriving energy from all of those things using biodigesters, gasifiers, desiccating toilets that can dry out human feces so we can turn it into charcoal and at least burn it for heat, and if nothing, and potentially burn it to run into charcoal and then use it to run a car, which would be super cool. No promises on that one, but I think it's possible. This is my check-in video for how things are going. Things are going really well. There's always more work to do. I kind of decided to not go to the architecture program that I was going to go to, and instead go to Standing Rock and try and implement these energy technologies that I've been studying, because I felt it's an opportunity to do all these things that I've been thinking about in theory on the ground in a way that matters, and which is just like a huge opportunity. So that's basically the check-in. That's where I'm at. I'll post some links in the comments of this. If you have any questions, let me know. As always, if you'd like to support me, you can become a contributor on my Patreon, and that money will be used directly. This month it will be going to actual physical infrastructure, particularly materials to make the gasifier better. And if I get extra, things for like solar panels and just sort of experimentation, I'll document what I spent it on at the end of the month, but I'm not sure what I will spend it on, except that it will be used for on-the-ground infrastructure that will help be producing regenerative waste energy technologies at Standing Rock. That's the best I can say right now. So thanks for listening, and I'll keep you all posted as things develop.